All right. Hello, everyone. Of course, this is Kevin Falk here. For audio listeners, I am Kevin Falk on YouTube. I have done movie reviews for several years now. I know I haven't really done much on SoundCloud and things like that, which is why I decided that I was going to put it on here. But of course, for those of you who know me on YouTube, you guys are probably wondering what the hell this is. I just dropped it randomly, but this is going to be for something that I've wanted to do for quite a while now, and that is the first episode of a limited podcast. It is not a huge thing or anything. It's a 3-episode series called the MCU Conversation. Now, let me explain essentially what this is. Last year, I actually planned on reviewing all of the Marvel films. I was going to do that thing where you're supposed to watch one Marvel movie a week, in anticipation for Infinity War, leading up to Infinity War, of course. I was going to try to do one review a week, and it just got too crazy. I knew for a fact there was no way I was going to stay on track with it. I knew it was probably, I would probably fall behind very quickly. So that's essentially why I decided not to do that. And I really wanted to make up for that this year. So rather than me just doing collab reviews with everyone for each and every movie, I figured it would make a lot more sense to do it this way. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do one episode about phase 1, one episode about phase 2, and then one for phase 3. In this episode, of course, it's going to be the phase 1 movies. We will be talking about each of the phase 1 movies, giving a grade to it, things like that, talking about our thoughts, what we like, what we dislike. And then we're going to grade the phase overall at the very end of the video. So that's really how it's going to go. But before we get into that, I do want to introduce my 3 other co-hosts who will be here with me probably every episode. At least I hope they will be here. First guy I got to introduce, this is the guy who made the intro for the podcast that you're watching. He is probably the most obsessed fan with Infinity War that maybe not as obsessed as Nem, the Infinity Watcher, but out of everyone I talk to, no one seems to know the MCU better than this guy right here. And it would be an utter disgrace if I did not have him on this podcast. And that, of course, is the man, the myth, the legend himself, Gary Rucker.
Bitch! Hi. Glad to be on here talking about the MCU movies. In here, the Phase 1 movies.
Yes.
Thank you, Kevin, to have me on there, and you're welcome for creating that trailer for you. So
Of course, yeah, it was really cool. If you guys didn't get to see it, head on over to my YouTube channel. It's right there. I think it's really well done, and I was really impressed with the way that turned out. And yeah, you can thank this guy for it. I had nothing to do with it. But
it's gonna be it's gonna be cool. Great talking about all these movies, but
Yep.
right before Endgame comes out. It also is going to be quite interesting rewatching all these in one fucking day.
Absolutely, yes. We will get into that. But next up here with me is the guy who didn't watch any of these movies with us.
Okay, I'm sorry, all right?
Two of us, we spent almost we did spend an entire day watching all of the Phase 1 movies, and this motherfucker right here didn't watch any of them with us, but he is still here, very excited to talk about these movies. Here is FilmFan0599.
Well, you know me. I'm not the best when it comes to binging movies in one day. But anyways, yes, I am. Hey, what's up, you guys? FilmFan0599. I'm here again, and I'm back on the Flakes channel for something huge.
Also on SoundCloud, because some people aren't watching this on YouTube.
Well, on SoundCloud as well. Well, this is the first time we've been on SoundCloud. But no, this should be very exciting. I am a huge fan of the MCU. Besides Star Wars, it's probably my favorite franchise of all time. I love it. Yeah, I absolutely love it. And this is gonna be really exciting to talk about each phase and each of the movies that are in them. And I'm very excited about this. This is the most excited about I've been about a collab in a very long time.
All right, and last person here with me is the person who easily is the most enthusiastic about being here, especially when it comes to this phase, which he just absolutely adored. And, we'll get into that later, but here he is, Adam Haskell.
Hi guys, how are you? My name is Adam Haskell, and I am here to talk about all these great fucking movies. So yeah, let's go, boys.
Especially the second one we're going to talk about. We know how much you love that one.
Yeah, love it. Best movie ever.
All right, so now that everyone's introduced, we're just going to start off here. Now, I need to preface something. Some of these movies are rewatches, but one of the movies we're talking about, I actually have never seen until last week. Was actually the first time I watched it, and we're gonna get into that. But we're gonna start off with the first movie here, which let's go back. Let's venture back to 2008. It is May 2008, and the MCU it's just a vision. It's just a vision. It doesn't seem like something that could possibly happen. There were so many franchises that just were not successful at all. And so when Iron Man comes out, not only does it have Robert Downey Jr., who at the time was really not doing very well for himself. It really is Marvel that did put him back on top. But then you also have this franchise. You're like, holy shit, maybe this could actually work. Maybe this could actually be successful. And of course, I am talking about Iron Man, which I know we have a lot to say. So I'm just getting into right now. On a rewatch, this film is just amazing an amazing sight to behold, honestly. Again, especially when it comes to most franchises, it is very rare that a franchise feels this confident, has this much effort put into it, that it has this much of a style. I mean, there's a lot to love about this movie, especially when it comes to Tony Stark, who I think is so well fleshed out here. I mean, he starts off and he's this very self-indulgent guy who is really just obsessed with, making weapons and things like that. And he's basically doing everything just for money and for his own self-worth. And the way he does just transition from this film alone, the way his character really does grow, I think is amazing to see, and I think they really do a great job with that. Robert Downey Jr., I think, is just so well casted in this role. Tony Stark is one of the best characters in the MCU. He's so charismatic. He's such a likable dude. Someone else, though, I don't think that gets enough credit, though, is Gwyneth Paltrow, who I'm not usually that big on. Love her in this movie, though. I mean, just these two interacting, just like the scene where she is repairing like his, his arc reactor and things like that. Just little things like that, I just think is so sweet. And I really do think that these two are arguably one of the best superhero romances of all time. I think they're so well paired together. There really is only one other couple that they might have competition with in the MCU. But in terms of superhero, pairings, I think they're definitely one of the best for sure. I really do love the bond that they have. It's very well fleshed out here. Jeff Bridges is also really great here. I really do like his villain. I know he gets a bad rep, but for most of the movie, I think he's actually really good. You can understand where he's coming from. He sees Iron Man and he kind of wants to outmatch him. He wants to become as powerful as Tony Stark, and I really do like that for sure. I think he definitely does a really good job. And the movie itself, there isn't really a point in the movie that really does drag for me. At first, the part where he was with all the soldiers and things like that, or like the terrorists, I thought that was, even that is still really interesting. It still is very well done, and I really do like how slow paced this movie is. They really do take their time with him getting the iconic suit and, really starting to understand his powers and things like that. I mean, that's one of the best parts, I think, of this entire movie is just waiting for him to undergo that transformation, seeing how much he does change in the movie. I think it's very well done. The effects still hold up, I think, immensely for sure. And I really do like the way it's done here. And I think they do a really good job with that overall. In terms of flaws with this movie, there really aren't too many. It's such, like I said, a fun and just a really exciting first film in the MCU. The thing that does hold it back for me is the third act. I do think it gets a little bit goofy, a little too goofy, honestly. The fighting between him and Jeff Bridges, the suit he wears, the things he's saying, it's hard to take it seriously. It's hard to really buy into it. You can tell that, for a while MCU had a problem with the third act, and this kind of bleeds into a lot of the earlier MCU films, not all of them, but quite a few of them. They had a problem with their third act. They didn't really know how to stick the landing. The film does very much show that. I do still like the fight. It's just some of it is very implausible, especially when they're like throwing cars and things like that. It's hard to take it seriously. The stuff that Jeff Bridges is saying is so over the top. And I do think that does deter the movie a bit. The ending, though, I do think is really well done. I do like the way things do end there. The only other thing that does hold it back for me is Terrence Howard. Now, I know that they did replace him, and I know it's not because of quality. It's because, him and Robert Downey Jr. just did not get along well on set. But honestly, I'm kind of glad they did because I just don't really buy him in this role. He's very stiff. It really does not seem like he is that comfortable in this role. I don't really buy him as Rhodey. The chemistry between the two just isn't really there. Thankfully, he's not in the movie a lot, but when he's in there, it's not terrible, but he just seems a bit miscasting. You can tell that they definitely can do better, and they did do better. Really, other than that, though, I think this film still holds up immensely. The effects still look amazing. The character of Iron Man is so well written, and for a first film in a franchise, I couldn't really ask for anything more. I think this is a really great film overall, so A- for Iron Man for sure. Absolutely love this one. But we're now going to turn to Gary over here, see what he has to say about it.
First off, I gotta say, is my audio like really bad?
No, it's good. It's good.
Okay, I was just worried. I won't.
You're fine.
All right, Iron Man. This came out almost a decade ago. So
yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. This came out, and a lot of people were like they didn't know how to feel about it because I guess to them Iron Man seems like a goofy superhero. He's just a guy made out of who has like a suit made out of metal and all that. And I heard when they got like Robert Downey Jr. to do it, a lot of people were like, "Oh shit," because like Robert Downey Jr. I wouldn't say like this was like his breakthrough role because he was already famous. Like he was like in other stuff like Get Natural Born Killers and like Ally McBeal and all that, and he did movies like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and Zodiac and The Shaggy Dog. But you can definitely say this was the role that definitely this and Tropic Thunder, like 2008 was like the year that was like his comeback year. And he is fantastic in this movie. Like there are very few roles in the superhero genre where you can say where you can't see anybody else playing that role other than that actor.
Oh yeah,
like you can say,
and that goes for a lot of the MCU. I feel like the casting for at least most of the MCU is pretty much spot on for the most part. They really do know how to cast their actors.
Yeah, it's like,
and this is a very good example of that.
Yeah, you can put like Robert Downey Jr. up there with like guys like Hugh Jackman and as Wolverine or Ryan Reynolds,
definitely.
where you like this guy is literally perfect for.
They're irreplaceable, yeah.
Yeah, like he literally and like an actor pretty much. Some of you you can say like an actor pretty much makes a movie worth it. Robert Downey Jr. is literally the reason to see this movie. He's incredible in the role, and you can tell that he is a jackass, but he's the type of jackass where you just can't help but love the guy. Like he's so funny, but he also goes through a very interesting arc. He goes from being like this typical jackass kind of character to someone that he actually does want to help people and all that. So in that way he's one of the best characters in the MCU. And like you, I'm not the biggest fan of Gwyneth Paltrow. She can be hit and miss with me. There's some movies that I like her in, there's some that I don't. This is one of the roles where I do like her in. I like her. I think her and Robert Downey Jr. has amazing chemistry. Like it's definitely one of the better superhero romance.
Oh yeah, definitely.
In any, and that's not saying a lot because there's like very few that work. To be honest with you, but yeah, I thought she was really good. Terrence Howard. Look, I know you thought he was, but I thought for what he did, I thought he was good.
Mhm.
I agree. I can definitely say like we haven't get to it yet, but I can say Don Cheadle did a better job than he
Yeah,
did.
no, definitely.
But
That's the thing for me. Like once we get to, we'll talk about Iron Man 2 in a little bit, but like Don Cheadle, I think is so good that like he really does outmatch Terrence Howard in that way.
Yeah.
Like Terrence Howard just is not memorable at all, at least
yeah,
for me.
but I still thought he did good. And you know, fun fact, he actually kind of championed Downey to play Iron Man.
Mhm.
Yeah, I heard about that. And also, I thought Jon Favreau did a good job with the direction.
Yeah,
But,
I will say though, going back to Terrence Howard, his best scene is actually the one that's the most awkward when he looks at the suit and he's like, "Not yet."
No, he's like next time, baby.
Yeah. I think that's probably his best scene, even though it's kind of awkward rewatching it.
Yeah. Next time you're gonna wear that suit, but you're gonna be a different guy.
You're gonna be a lot like skinnier and shit. You're gonna look completely different.
You're gonna look a lot darker and
Yeah.
yeah, he was really like I thought Jon Favreau did a great job directing it. Like he did a great job with the action scenes. The action scenes are like fucking incredible, especially once he suits up and heads to Afghanistan to fight the terrorists. Like that was fucking badass, and the iconic shot when he dodged that fucking ammo from the tank, and then he shoots at it and blows up the tank and walks away, not looking back. That was fucking badass.
Mhm.
Jeff Bridges, I think he is one of the better MCU villains.
Yeah, especially in Phase 1 for sure.
Yes. And I agree with you. The special effects, even over a decade later, they still holds up. They till this day. Like, and honestly, rewatching these movies, I honestly just miss the Mark III suit. Because that suit looks. Yeah, I don't have a problem with like the new Iron Man suits. It's just with the Mark III one, it just looks more real.
Mhm.
And in regards to flaws with the movie, I can agree with you that the third act does get a little too silly. I still had fun watching it, but it does. There are certain moments where you're like, okay, this is getting too fucking ridiculous. But besides that, Iron Man is still fantastic. It's honestly it is one of the best superhero movies ever made. It's easily like arguably top 5 MCU movies or top 10 at least. But yeah, I give it an A. It's definitely one of the best in the MCU by far. That's all I got to say. So.
All right, so now we got to turn to Spider-Man here and see what he has to say about
Spider-Man is not involved in any of this just yet.
Not yet. Well, actually, we'll talk about that in Iron Man 2. But what do you have to say about your master's first movie?
It's fantastic. It is absolutely the best starting point they could have ever asked for this franchise, to be honest. A lot of people going into this were kind of like, really, because Iron Man, to be honest, before this movie was not really that big of a character. Like,
I didn't even hear about him that much.
Like, people knew who he was, like, you know, and stuff like that. But this is what made him a mega superhero. This is an absolutely incredible origin story film. I still think this is one of the best origin story films in terms of superheroes, to be honest. Sure, yeah. I love the evolution that Tony Stark goes through in just this first movie, to be honest. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, like we've said, he was kind of like this arrogant, almost prick-like type person at first, but then once he becomes, you know, Iron Man, he starts learning more and still wants to, you know, he wants to help people now. I think it's really fantastic, honestly. Like, I really like the evolution he just goes through in just this movie alone. It's really fantastic. Robert Downey Jr. easily gives one of the greatest superhero performances of all time. He's literally fit for this role so much. It's literally like Tony Stark is jumping out of the pages and being brought to the big screen. In such an amazing way. The CGI still holds up immensely for a movie that came out 10 years ago. It still holds up immensely years later. The action scenes are really great, in my opinion. Like you guys mentioned, I love the chemistry between Tony and Pepper Potts. I think it's absolutely great. It's probably my favorite romance in any superhero franchise, to be honest. the way those two interact with each other, it's really fantastic.
It's only real competition for me, I'd say, is Peter Parker and MJ in like the first three Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, that's really
Wade
Star-Lord and
Wilson
Gamora and Guardians.
and Wade Wilson and Vanessa and Deadpool. So.
Yeah, them too.
Yeah, there's only a select few like romances you can like see are really good in superhero movies, to be completely honest, and this is definitely one of them. I love the chemistry, like Robert Downey Jr. and Gwyneth Paltrow seem like they have like natural chemistry with each other, and it's really fantastic to see on screen. Terrence Howard is fine. He's not, he's definitely, not the best element of this movie, but when he's doing this thing, he's doing this thing. Definitely my least favorite part of this movie is actually Jeff Bridges. He's good in the movie for the most part, but once he becomes, the villain, when he really becomes the villain, I think he's not the best, to be honest. I think he's actually one of the weaker MCU villains. I'm not too huge on him, to be honest. I actually think the finale fight is actually really cool, despite some of its silliness. But my only issue with this movie is him as a villain, to be honest. I get his motivations and stuff like that, but I never really found him that compelling as a villain, to be completely honest. So yeah, other than that, this is an amazing start to the MCU. Like I said, the best possible way they could have start off this entire franchise, and I really love it a lot. Definitely deserves all the praise it gets, and still holds up as one of the best, not only in the MCU, but just one of the best in the superhero genre in general. So I'm going to give Iron Man a big old A.
All right. So finally, we'll turn to Adam here to talk about his least favorite in the entire series, for sure.
Yeah, fuck this movie. No, in all seriousness, Iron Man, basically we just gonna basically say what you guys have already said, Robert Downey Jr., he's great in the film. I really loved him here. He's the best thing about this movie. He's what really makes this movie. Just a great performance. Love him here. Like you guys said, I really like how the movie really takes its time. There's a lot, it really takes its time. There's a lot of build up, and I really like that a lot. It doesn't rush through anything. Really love that. It makes it a really great origin movie. And yeah, the action here, it's really great. It's really exciting to watch. I actually really love Jeff Bridges as the villain. I think he's really great in this film. There's some things a little silly, mainly in the final act. It's but for the most part, I do actually think he does a really great job. I love Robert Downey Jr. and Gwyneth Paltrow's relationship in this film. I do think they work really well together, and I love that. I will agree with you guys that Terrence Howard, not the greatest in this film. Just really whatever. Don Cheadle's a lot better, so yeah. But yeah, it's crazy how well this movie holds up, honestly, after all these years. The effects, I think, look just as great as the movies we get today. Obviously, the movies we get today maybe look a little better, but it still looks really great. And it's pretty amazing how well it still holds up, considering this is 2008. It's pretty nuts. And yeah, really great start to the MCU, and easily the best in this phase. So yeah.
All right, so that's Iron Man. We got the one out of the way. Switching gears entirely, though, we go to the film that I actually haven't seen before. I talked about how most of these are rewatches. This one's actually not. Somehow, I don't know how, but I've never seen the 2008 Incredible Hulk until now, and we all kind of feel differently about this one, so I'm going to do this one a little bit differently than we did with Iron Man. Rather than just going to everyone, we're going to give our quick thoughts right away. The majority of us don't really like this film. I'll just say that right now. A lot of us really don't like this film very much at all. But just to be positive, we're going to go to the person that actually does really like this film, and that's Double Nine right here.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I do quite enjoy this movie a lot. I don't love it nearly as much as I used to. I used to think it was like my favorite in the entirety of the MCU. But don't really think that anymore. But it's still a really entertaining movie, in my opinion.
Suicide Squad's an A-.
Wait, what'd say?
Guys, Suicide Squad's an A-.
I will super kick your ass. But anyways, but no, this movie is really fun to watch, in my opinion. I really like. Well, I do think Mark Ruffalo is a better Hulk. I did actually quite enjoy Edward Norton in this. He was very good. I liked him as Bruce Banner a lot. You know, and Liv Tyler was actually pretty good in this movie too. You know, the acting I thought overall for the most part was really solid. The action sequences are really fun to watch. Like the Hulk sequences, like at the time, the Hulk was my favorite comic book character. So to see an actual Hulk movie, like do some Hulkisms that weren't terrible, like the 2003 movie, where it was actually great. Like I enjoyed a lot of the action scenes in here, like when he's taking out all the army men at first. That's really great. Despite how it might get a little bit silly towards the end, I do actually quite enjoy the fight between him and the Abomination. I think that is a really great action scene. One of the, I think probably besides the Avengers, it's probably my favorite third act to any of the movies in the Phase 1, to be honest. I actually enjoyed this fight quite a lot. You know, and some of my issues, I do think some of the CGI doesn't really hold up the best. Mainly for the Abomination. That's really what the CGI doesn't look the best. Hulk looks really good for the most part. I actually do think Hulk looks very solid. I will admit he looks, when he turns into the Hulk, he looks nothing like Edward Norton at all. For some reason, he has long ass hair when he turns into the Hulk. I don't know why. I still find that weird to this day. But I also do think the romance is pretty kind of just thrown in there for Edward Norton and Liv Tyler. Like, while I do think they're both really good at the movie, I do think the romance is kind of just thrown in there, to be honest, and doesn't really like you know, it doesn't really mesh well in my eyes. But it's certainly better than whatever we got in that 2003 movie. But it still could have been a bit better. But other than that, there's really only flaws I could really come up with. But other than that, I still have a blast watching this movie. Is it perfect? Is it one of the best in the MCU? No, not really. But I do quite enjoy this movie a lot, to be honest. It's definitely, if we're never going to get another solo Hulk movie again, I'm at least glad we got this one at least, you know. So I quite enjoyed the film a lot. So overall, I would give The Incredible Hulk a B+.
All right, so with that out of the way,
shift the gears to a much more negative note.
Yes, I think the three of us can all talk about this collectively. So the three of us here, me, Adam, and Gary, we watched one together, just like we did all of the ones in the Phase 1. And honestly, this is one of those films that a lot of people don't remember. Some people don't even remember that this is an MCU film. And honestly, I'm sorry, 9, but I can understand because it's not much to me at all. I don't really like this film very much. I think it's honestly really boring and very hard to get through at times. I think it really doesn't feel like an MCU movie very much at all. Nothing about this has the feel of an MCU, especially when you're watching Iron Man. When you watch this right after, you see a huge contrast. And Adam, I know especially you will agree with me on this. This film is glacially slow. I mean, there's barely...
Oh, that was one of my issues too. Sometimes the pacing can be a bit too slow.
So slow. The story is so lacking. There's really not a lot happening in terms of character or anything like that. I think that the romance between those two, it's really not very good at all. I think it's very forced down your throats. I think that the effects, apart from a couple scenes, are really bad for the most part. They really don't look very good at all. And I know, Adam, you actually compared it to, like, The Amazing Spider-Man, which...
Okay, the reason I compare it to The Amazing Spider-Man, here's the reason why. Not the second one, the first Amazing Spider-Man. The reason why I compare it... I'm gonna say right off that I really hate the first Amazing Spider-Man. I know there's some people that like it. I know a lot of people just find it okay. That's kind of the common opinion. I'm not one of those people. I really hate that movie. The reason why I compare is I think they both share a similar thing: just bland cinematography, boring effects, the chemistry between the two, the romance shit. It's all boring. Um, the score sucks. I just think they both share that similar thing,
No,
and
they
they're both kind of
like
yeah, and it's just
especially how dark everything is. Like it's
yeah.
really
I
dark and gritty, and there's like barely any humor.
yeah, it's just I know not every superhero film has to be like, bright and colorful and shit. I'm aware of that, but like if it's just how I prefer my superhero films, I just like them. Like my favorite kind of superhero movies are things like the Guardians movies and shit like that. I like movies like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. I think everything is just, it's too dark, it's too boring. The side characters are nothing. They really are nothing at the end of the day. You have characters like, say, Tim Blake Nelson, who he kind of starts off and you think he's going to go somewhere interesting. And towards the end of the film, they kind of hint at something, but they've never gone back to it and they're never going to, I don't think. As far as like Tim Roth and like William Hurt, William Hurt, I think, is the only somewhat good character here. Thus, the reason why he was brought back for the other films. But Tim Roth, there's like nothing to him. He's just the corporate bad guy, and that's kind of all he is in the film. Ty Burrell is one of those performances that literally could have been played by anyone. I mean, it's one of the most. I know I've said that he was usually really good with casting, but this has to be one of the most random casting choices I think they've ever made. I mean, I don't know what they were really thinking there with Ty Burrell. There's no chemistry between him and Liv Tyler, just like there's no chemistry between Liv Tyler and Edward Norton. Also, I'll just say right off the bat, Liv Tyler, I think, is fucking terrible in this film. There are so many times where I know, Gary, you can relate to this as well. Any time that she screamed or something like that, we just fucking like laughed our asses off. Because
or like when she was like,
exactly. Things like that. Just it's so tonally, it's so bad. You don't get the sense that she's into it at all. She really is phoning it in here, and that really does go for most of the cast. Edward Norton, I think, is probably the best out of everyone besides William Hurt. Like, he's definitely trying. The problem is his Bruce Banner is just not very interesting. He's lacking quite a lot. I do think that there is one really solid warehouse scene. That the one fight that you alluded to, Double Nine, I actually do think is the only good sort of fight scene in the movie. I think it actually is a good action scene for sure. And when the movie was starting off, I was like, hey, the action scenes are actually not too bad here. But honestly, the more they went on, the more just monotonous and same it became. When Hulk is like tearing shit apart, it's laughable. It's really bad. It looks like something out of like Amazing Spider-Man or even a Transformers movie at some point. It's very hard seriously. And I just was not into it at all. Abomination is basically that. I mean, he's an abomination to look at. It's so, especially again, transitioning from Iron Man to Incredible Hulk. I mean, and maybe that's part of the reason why I'm being a lot harder on this film. But just it doesn't feel like an MCU movie at all. It doesn't have the look of one. I can't say I hate it because there are things I like about it, and it's not memorable enough for me to say I hate it. But just overall, I don't really think this film is very good at all. I think it's an absolute, mess. I think that it's really boring. It is probably the most inessential in the entire franchise, minus one scene. I think we can all collectively agree that the post-credit scene of this movie is probably one of the most impressive in the entire series, because you have to remember, back when post-credit scenes happen in films, most of the time they didn't happen. Most of the time they were teasing something and they just didn't really go anywhere. Seeing Tony Stark show up at the end of this film and him, talking to William Hurt about, meeting Bruce Banner and things like that, and the Avengers initiative, it shows that, holy shit, this is actually going somewhere. We're actually doing this. And it shows that there is actually going to be progression in the story. So I do think that is well done. It just kind of sucks that the rest of the movie is kind of a slog to get through. I'd go a C- for this one. I don't hate it, but it's just really nothing to me. you two can basically chime in.
Yeah,
Go
but
ahead.
also I want to point out something real quick. I find it hilarious that most people, don't mention the fact that this was rebooted so soon after the 2003 Hulk. Like, literally, it took them only, like 5 years to reboot it? Like,
Yeah. And then it was rebooted again in the Avengers.
yeah, exactly. Like, a lot of people talk about Spider-Man. Like, Hulk has been, like, there's been, like, 3 people that have played Hulk in, like, the last few years.
Yeah, no, definitely. But
we forgot about talking about when we were talking about Iron Man, the post-credit scene in Iron Man. That was fantastic with them setting up the entire universe.
Yeah, definitely. But all right, go ahead. You haven't really gotten to talk about this film, so go ahead.
Yeah, Incredible Hulk. All right, this movie has been. People already know about the whole behind-the-scenes stuff with how Edward Norton was a pain in the ass to work with on set, all that shit. But as the movie itself goes, here's the thing, though. Like I never just talking about the Phase 1 movies, but honestly, like watching all the MCU movies, like I don't hate any of them. To be honest, I don't like even the ones that are not a lot of people consider to be the worst. I don't hate.
There is one I hate, and we'll get to that in another.
Well, you haven't seen it in years, so
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so you be quiet. But at worst, the MCU is very MCU movie at worst can be just for me like very mediocre. And honestly, this is like I used to like this movie, saying like, okay, that was fun. And then rewatching it, like last week, I realized like, oh, okay, it's not terrible, but it's just very generic, boring, and just whatever. Honestly, like if there's like one MCU movie, like I know a lot of people was like, I want to, like I want to rewatch all of them. This is like the one where I'm like, I don't want to buy it. Like it doesn't really I don't feel it doesn't really feel like an MCU movie. The nicest compliment I can give is that it's way better than the. I think we all agree that those of us who've seen it, that it's way better than the Ang Lee Hulk. It's way better. Like it's.
I haven't seen that one, so I can't.
Well, me and Double Nine. It's way better.
I don't know if Adam agrees, but
I fucking hated that one too. So.
Yeah, but
I haven't
Adam,
seen it in a long time.
But Adam, what you say from what you remember is that this Hulk is not as bad as the Ang Lee one.
I mean, this one's probably like. Well, I'm gonna spoil my fucking grade right now. This one's like a D. Well, that one's probably, from what I remember, like a D minus. So yeah, that one's probably.
All right, so like marginally better.
All right,
by a hair.
If I'm gonna be nice, all right, for a few minutes. There's like one funny scene involving Luke Ferrigno.
Actually, I forgot to talk about that. I feel that's one of the things I feel like was one of the biggest missed opportunities. I really do think Lou Ferrigno should have played a bigger role in this film. Like, have him be like maybe a recruiter or someone that like he takes like under his wing. Like, I think that could have been really cool. Like the dynamic between those two, I would have liked to see that, and I think that would have been cool if they did that. Kind of like a Barry Allen and John Wesley Shipp, Barry Allen sort of thing. That could have been cool.
Yeah.
Edward Norton did fine for what he did. Like I wouldn't say he's awful, but for what he did, I thought he did all right. I like William Hurt. I thought he did good. Pretty much most of the Tim Roth did fine. There were some cool moments in the action sequences. The final fight, I will admit, was pretty cool, even though it does look like a video game. And everything else, okay. First of all, what Kevin said. The movie is very boring. Like I really honestly, this is one of those few times where like when we watching the MCU, it's like there's like some characters that you kind of feel like work better as a supporting character than there as a lead. Like you get like when people say like some characters kind of work better as a supporting character than a main character. Like how people say that about like Ant-Man and Doctor Strange and how they work better as supporting characters, but at least with them, like there's something to get behind them and they kind of have interest. And not only that both Paul Rudd and Benedict Cumberbatch have so much charisma and charm that like they can totally lead a movie. Where Edward Norton, the Bruce Banner character is so dull. He's so bland that honestly you just don't care about him. And
yeah, when people say like they don't take the Hulk like as seriously in like the newer Marvel films, like I'm over here like I'm kind of happy that they don't, because considering what we got here, it's really fucking boring.
yeah, I'm glad.
Like, at least the one in the new one is like really fun and entertaining. The one here is just like so.
Yeah, and Mark Ruffalo is a way better Hulk.
For sure.
And Double Nine mentioned this earlier. When Edward Norton turns into the Hulk, he doesn't look like him. Like at least with Mark Ruffalo, and even fucking Eric Bana, at least their Hulks look like them. This Hulk doesn't even look like Edward Norton. It just looks. It's like Edward Norton has brown hair, and when he
yeah, that's why I always found weird when he turns into the Hulk. He's got like this like almost like long black hair. It's like fucking weird.
Also, the scene where he's on like the operating table or whatever, and he's transitioning into the Hulk, that gave me like major fucking like Venom vibes. Like everyone's like memed up like Tom Hardy like going and things like that. Like I feel like if this came out now, it would probably get the same treatment because it was very similar to that.
It almost feels like something out of like the early 2000s.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. There, again, as we've touched upon, there's really not a lot about this movie that line with the rest of the MCU.
And on that, yeah, the visual effects, like it's especially after watching both this and Iron Man back to back, is like, like when you watch Iron Man and like the effects 10 years later, they still hold up and look incredible. And the effects in this movie look like a video game.
Yeah.
But what can you expect from the same guy who did Clash of the Titans and
yeah, that's true.
yeah, this is the same. And also, yeah, you said it. Liv Tyler is fucking awful. I liked her. I like her in other movies. Like I like her in Lord of the Rings.
The Stranger, she's really good.
Sure, and I'm sure she's good on The Leftovers.
Woo! Yes.
But here she's really bad. Yeah, her every time she yells or grunts, it's the funniest thing ever. Like Dad, Dad, or like, or when she was grunting at the cab drivers, like.
Oh yeah, that was great.
And
a lot of unintentionally funny stuff with her.
Yeah, and yeah, the romance between her and Edward Norton is terrible, honestly.
Yeah,
but I'm being honest, it's probably the worst MCU romance. Yeah, I'm going that far. I think it's worse than another romance we'll get to later. But
I honestly, yeah, I'd probably agree with you because at least with that one, we'll get to that in a little bit. But this one, like, there's never a scene where I felt any hint of chemistry between them. Like it's so forced and shoved down your throat. Especially when they first introduce her and like you see her with like that random dude, like the second she's there they're gonna get together, and that's what she used to do in the film. Like Pepper Potts, like what I love about her is that sure she is his love interest, but she also is her own character. Liv Tyler's not a character; she's just a love interest to Bruce Banner, and that's kind of it.
And honestly, when the Russo brothers said that she was part of the people that turned to dust, I was like, okay, I don't care.
Yeah.
He's like, you don't really care. It's like, okay.
I mean, she hasn't really even mattered as a character at all. Oh, this whole movie hasn't really mattered as a thing.
I find it interesting that the only thing they've touched upon is William Hurt, especially when you have the Tim Blake Nelson thing at the end. You think maybe that's going to go somewhere, but they've literally never come back to it.
Yeah, it's like this movie is out of canon with the other movies. Yeah. And like I said, the final bite, yeah, it's cool, but rewatching it does feel like you're watching a goddamn video game.
Yeah.
With the Hulk and the Abomination punching each other.
Oh yeah.
It's like, yeah, Jesus Christ, like again, I don't hate this movie. I don't think it's an awful movie. Like there's stuff in here that keeps me from saying, "Oh my god, this movie's freaking horrible" and all that. But at the end of the day, it's probably my second to least favorite MCU movie. To be honest, if I'm being honest with you. But I give it around like a C. I definitely liked it more than you and Adam, but
oh yeah.
But it's not it's not very memorable, and honestly, I don't feel like rewatching this movie.
All right, so I know he's been very patient here. He's already kind of alluded to his thoughts on the film, but Adam, have at it.
I really don't like this movie. Um, while watching it, I didn't expect to hate this at all. Like, I just thought maybe I'd find it okay or something. But once I kept watching it and watching it and watching it, ooh, yeah, it's just boring. The characters, I don't care. The acting is just Edward Norton. I know a lot of people like him. I didn't. I just thought he was boring. Um, the effects are really bad compared to the other films in the MCU. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. Oh my God, there were points where I was kind of laughing because they just looked so bad.
Yeah, especially I remember the one scene where like all the guys are like shooting at him.
It's just like, what the fuck is this?
Fucking funny.
The score. What even was the fucking score?
I don't remember it at all.
Cinematography. Yeah, it's so boring to look at. Fuck. Just everything about this. It's just like this is kind of like my thoughts on Amazing Spider-Man almost. It's just boring. The only difference with this and Amazing Spider-Man is with Amazing Spider-Man, there's nothing I can really laugh at, but with this, there's a couple scenes that made me kind of laugh. Because it's just so fucking bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just not an MCU movie. It just doesn't feel like one. It feels like something from like the very early 2000s. That's really that's the best way to describe it. It really has that very early 2000s feel. And yeah, especially considering Mark Ruffalo now plays him, it really doesn't feel like it fits in anymore. Like, really doesn't. I'm just happy he's playing him now because he's much fucking better. And yeah, I already said my grade. I'd give this a D. I mean, I don't even really know what my positives are, honestly. It's just not enough.
I guess that there are moments that are unintentionally funny.
I guess. It's just
kind of it.
I don't know. It's just. I mean, I liked the mid credit scene. There's a positive.
Oh yeah, that's great.
That was great. So yeah, fuck. I don't know. It's just I don't like this movie. I think it's terrible.
All right, so Incredible Hulk. Again, honestly, probably could have just left this on not watched. I could have honestly never have watched this film, and I think I'd probably be okay. But I watched it. You got my thoughts on it, so we're done there. But now we get to the one that I think is definitely the most, not maybe the most divisive, but the one that I think definitely gets the most hate. And that's Iron Man 2. I know we have a lot of things to say about this film. Now, I'll say right now, is this a good movie? No. I think it is far too problematic to call it a good movie. But I don't think it's nearly as mediocre as everyone else thinks it is. And similar to Double Nine, we actually do have a defender of this one at all. Gary here, I know you actually really like this movie.
Boy.
And there are actually quite a few things I do agree with you on. So
yeah. Look, I know there's some people that don't like this movie at all. I know people say this is easily like say that this is the worst MCU movie and say like it's one of the worst superhero movies of all time. And like, and rewatching it, and I'm even every time I rewatch the movie, I'm like, okay, it's not a great movie. There's definitely some flaws with it, but I don't think it's as terrible as many people make it out to be.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a bad movie really at all.
Yeah, I can just get my negatives out the way. It is definitely feel more like a Avengers setup than an Iron Man movie.
Yeah, and that's one of my biggest problems with it is that you can tell after this film that, especially after the Incredible Hulk, they were like, all right, we gotta go. We know we got to set up the Avengers, and
yeah. Like it's just
full speed ahead. And there's a lot of things in this movie for sure that definitely feel like they're just there to set up an Avengers movie.
Yeah, like Black Widow and Nick Fury. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Mickey Rourke as Whiplash. I actually do like him as Whiplash.
Oh, he is phenomenal, I think.
Yeah, but I do think that he could have had more to do.
Yeah.
Sam Rockwell as Justin Hammer.
No.
I think we all have a disagreement on him, but he's not the best written character, but it's just Sam Rockwell just so good that I just can't help but like him in the role.
Yeah, okay. Look, I can understand that for sure, but for me at least, I cannot stand this fucking guy. I thought he was so obnoxious. I thought he was really over the top. And to me, it just seemed like they tried to do something different, and then they just backtracked and basically just replicated what they did in the first film. Like, it's basically the same type of villain. He's a guy, he wants to outmatch Tony Stark's, like, you know, inventions and things like that, and that's really all he does. Like, he just is not a very formidable foe at all. And considering how well Mickey Rourke is set up, Sam Rockwell is just really bad in this movie. I think his only good sort of sequence for me is the scene between him and Mickey Rourke, where
about the bird.
Yeah, that stuff I really like. That stuff I think is really clever and fun. But other than that, I think he is so bland, and I think he really is not very good here at all. I usually love Sam Rockwell, but I did not feel him in this movie. I think he's definitely probably the weakest link, and probably one of the worst MCU villains for me.
Yeah, I can understand that. I wasn't annoyed by him. Tony Stark's arc throughout the movie, it could have been better.
Yeah, it's not. That's the other thing. It's not really there either. But go ahead.
Yeah, but I don't. Yeah, but it doesn't bother me because there, like, for all the, like, here's the thing. With all the stuff that doesn't work in a movie, there are some stuff that do. But like that, there's a lot more stuff that do work than it doesn't. Like, for one, like Robert Downey Jr., he's still great. Once again, I know a lot of people say like, "Oh, he's unlikable in this one," but like, I kind of understand why he was like that. Like, because the arc reactor was kind of messing with his like head and all that stuff. So in that case, I can understand why he was acting like that. And still, I thought he was fantastic.
Right.
The relationship between him and Pepper is still great. The visual effects are so incredible. Like the suitcase suit, that was amazing. That was a badass moment. The action scenes are phenomenal. Like the fight on the racing track between him and Whiplash, that was great. The end battle with him and Rhodey mowing down all the drones, that was pretty awesome. Black Widow when she's kicking ass, that was great. Even if she was kind of got shoved in there, but Scarlett Johansson did a great job as Black Widow in the movie. Let's see. What else? Oh, let's see. I gotta find more. What else? I like. There's one scene. There's the one scene with Tony watching a video of his dad.
Oh yeah, that's a good scene.
That's for me. That's the best scene in the movie. And like we said about the first Iron Man, how like with Terrence Howard, I thought he was good, but there are definitely times where he kind of let Robert Downey Jr. kind of overshadow him. Where Don Cheadle, I thought Don Cheadle was actually like he brought a more commanding presence to the role.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, he stood on his own. He brought so much more to the Rhodey character than what Terrence Howard did. And for that, I think he's like the one thing about the movie that you can say it's better than the first one.
Yeah.
And then so even if overall I do like Iron Man 2. I can get why some people don't like it, and
of course, yeah.
And compared to the first one, it is a disappointment. But
definitely.
But I still have fun watching it. It does have its entertaining moments, and for that, I give it like a B. It's
okay. B. Fair. Now look, like I said before, there's a lot of things I do agree with you on. For the first, I want to say 40 to 50 minutes of this film, I actually was really liking. Wow, this is actually, I think, really underrated. I think there's a lot of good stuff going on here. I especially love Mickey Rourke. I think he's one of the best things about this film. The prison scene alone, I don't know why that doesn't get more talk. I mean, that scene is so badass when he just goes in there and he breaks out of prison. He ends up like throwing those explosives and shit. I mean, that shot when he's walking away, that scene is amazing. And I don't know why more people don't talk about that. The sort of like race track scene or whatever, I think that scene is really well done as well. And his character, I think, is really well set up here. That he, Tony Stark has wronged him in the past and things like that. So he kind of has this like grudge against him and all that kind of stuff. And I think they set that up really well. And that's something that I was really enjoying. And I do like the idea that the arc reactor is, really starting to affect Tony. It's starting to have a very negative effect on him, because in the first one, we really got into how this was helping him. Here, it shows more how it's hurting him and things like that. And I do think that is really good. The problem is, I don't really think he goes anywhere. I don't really think he transitions that much from this film than he did in the first film. I don't really feel like we explore a lot of new ground. I don't really feel like there is a clear-cut arc with him. And again, it's hard to dislike Tony Stark because Robert Downey Jr. is so great in this role. And of course, in this film, I mean, he is at the top of his game here, as he always is. He's great in every single one of these films. Even The Incredible Hulk, a film he had a very small role in, he still is out acting, I think, everyone in that film. Here, on the other hand, while he still is doing a great job, my problem is, like I said, Tony Stark just does not really go anywhere as a character here. I don't really feel like he changes that much. And it feels like it's just a sequel that was very rushed. I heard this film was very much rushed into production, and you definitely do get that sense. The Avengers stuff, as I touched upon, I like seeing Black Widow. I like seeing Nick Fury, but I honestly feel like you could have cut their stuff from the film and the film would play out exactly the same. I mean, that one scene where he meets Nick Fury at like that coffee shop or whatever just feels so random. It comes out of nowhere. And sure, we did see Nick Fury at the end of Iron Man. I feel like he could have played a much different role here, and it just didn't really work. What they do with Black Widow as well, it just makes things very convoluted. I think him and Pepper's relationship isn't really that great here either. They don't really go that much as a couple. I will definitely agree with you, though. Don Cheadle is so much better, I think. So much more charismatic. He clearly is having a lot more fun in the role. The second he shows up, I mean, you just feel him more as the character, and I think he does a really good job with that. And I do like this idea that these two are starting to turn against each other. I think that's a really good idea that's explored. The problem is, once again, it just isn't explored enough. There's simply too much going on in this movie. And I think if you would have cut some of the stuff out, like maybe cut back on Sam Rockwell especially, I think you could remove him, get rid of the Black Widow stuff, get rid of all the stuff going on with Tony's arc reactor. And I think you have a really solid movie. It's just there's just way too much going on for me to say that this is a good movie. I do still think there are good things about it. I think it's better than people give it credit for. But again, I can't sit here and say it's a good movie because there's just too much here that is very messy. It's very disappointing, especially in terms of the first one. And just in general, it isn't a very memorable sequel at all. There are memorable sequences. Like I said, I think every action sequence, for the most part, is great here. I don't think there's a single dud in the bunch there. And I do think there are some really amazing performances. Even Scarlett Johansson, I mean, she doesn't really have, I think, as much to do as she should, but she still does a fantastic job in this film. So for those reasons alone, I can definitely give this one a C+, but I can't really go any higher than that. But I also can't go any lower because, like I said, admittedly, there were quite a few things I did enjoy about this film.
All right, so I guess it's my turn.
Now we turn to the person that is probably the most negative about this film out of the three of us.
Wait. Also, the the little. I also forgot to mention the little kid that wear the Iron Man helmet.
Oh yeah. Okay.
That was actually Spider-Man.
Yeah. There's been theories for years about this, and apparently the kid that wore that little Iron Man costume in the film, that's actually supposed to be Spider-Man, which I think is a really cool connection, and also shows that Marvel had plans to put Spider-Man in these films for years. It wasn't something that was just like a last-ditch sort of, it didn't just come out of nowhere. Like, this was foretold, and I think that's really cool overall. Also, for audio listeners, Adam Haskell did leave, but we were very happy to have him on. I loved hearing his thoughts about Iron Man, Incredible Hulk. Hopefully, he can come back for the other 2 episodes, but loved having you on. Definitely am looking forward to watching the rest of these movies with you. And anyway, we now turn to Spider-Man himself, who was in Iron Man 2, to see what he thinks about this movie.
Like Kevin said, I'm probably the most negative about this movie out of anybody in this thing. This is without question my least favorite in the entirety of the MCU. I think this is an almost god-awful movie, almost, honestly. This is a literal mess of a movie, to be honest. You could definitely feel this was rushed into production, to be honest, because they felt that, oh, the first movie was really successful, so let's try and get the sequel out there as fast as possible. And it definitely shows. This feels like just one big, let's just set up for the Avengers movie, and it just... I still like Robert Downey Jr. a lot in this film. He's still very good. The acting, for the most part, isn't that bad. Donald Cheadle is great. I love the interaction between the two of them. It's probably my favorite thing about this movie, to be honest. Literally, why was Black Widow in this? As much as I do enjoy her in the film, what is the purpose of really her being in here other than... we need her to have some development going into the Avengers.
Yeah.
I felt she was very shoehorned into there. I actually do not really like Mickey Rourke a lot in this movie. I think Whiplash is easily one of the weaker Marvel villains, in my opinion. He is really not that good. Sam Rockwell is god-awful in this. He's easily the worst actor in this entire movie. And I love Sam Rockwell. Sam Rockwell is a fantastic actor, but I don't know exactly what he was doing here. He is terrible in this. He is really bad. The action sequences are not that great in my eyes, honestly, other than the race one, which I think
the racing scene.
Yeah, that one is great. That is easily my favorite action scene in the entire film, but the finale, I think, is kind of lame, to be honest. It's really not that good of a movie to me. I just really don't enjoy this all that much. I feel like it's major filler, to be honest. I feel like it was like they were like, okay, the first was really successful. We need to make a sequel as soon as we can. This only came out 2 years after the original Iron Man, so I just felt this was very rushed in production. And it's just, and you could tell, it's really, honestly, a big mess of a movie, in my opinion, and it's easily my least favorite of the MCU. It's easily the movie I've watched, the least out of all of them, because it's boring, it's a mess, I don't really enjoy it. Like I said, it's almost a near god-awful movie, in my opinion. So, overall, I would give it a C-. It's not that great of a film, in my opinion, and it's easily the weakest of the MCU.
Yeah, I respect.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. Like I said, I just think there's so much good here that it's hard to say it's a terrible movie or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I said, those good things do keep it from me for saying it's terrible, but it's just so much of a mess. It's to me, it's so much of a mess that it's hard for me to enjoy it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So that's Iron Man 2. Got that out of the way. Again, I think that's probably, out of all of the MCU films, probably the most divisive, probably the one that gets the most hate. But again, some of us...
No, that is not the one that gets the most hate. The one that gets the most hate, we'll get into in another phase, but...
That one, one of the ones, definitely. But speaking of what you were just alluding to, we get to the next film, which now this was one that I was very interested in rewatching because I didn't really remember it that much, and that's the first Thor, of course. Now, look, the Thor character in his current state is fantastic. I really do love where he's gone. But I watched this movie and I just remember how bland a lot of these movies really were. There is a lot to like here for sure. I think we can all collectively agree that most of the stuff on
Asgard,
there you go. Most of the stuff on Asgard is phenomenal. I mean, the way things look, minus a couple iffy CGI things here. Most of it looks great. The story between him, Loki, and Odin is so well done. I love the way all of that is done. Even getting, Renee Russo in there, even though she doesn't have a lot to do, I still really do enjoy her in this film. I think the first 20 to 30 minutes are amazing.
Let me just say this. The first 20 to 30 minutes, this is a fantastic movie. I love this movie.
Same. I was rewatching it, and especially the scene where Thor ends up sort of reigniting that war in Asgard, and you see how disappointed Odin was and things like that. That's an incredible scene, and I love the way things like that are done. And anytime we cut back to Asgard, it's fantastic. The rest of this movie, on the other hand, another story. Not a fan of it at all. Look, I get what they were trying to go for here. I get that they thought, hey, everyone knows Asgard. Let's try to throw him on Earth. We got to get him into the MCU, and the way to do that is to put him on Earth. But I think it was completely the wrong decision in this movie, because the characters that are populating that portion of the film are so bland and so boring, and some of them extremely annoying. I'll just say it right now. I haven't rewatched the other MCU films, but I think it's going to be very hard for me to find a character that annoys me more than Kat Dennings in this.
Oh, fuck, she's awful.
I cannot stand her in this movie. I think she's so annoying. I think she's so obnoxious. They're so easily trying to make her the comic relief of this film, to the point where it's annoying. Anytime she, said any kind of line, any sort of utterance of anything, I just couldn't stand her, and I was waiting for her to just go away in this film. I'm so happy that she is not in the current MCU films, because I honestly forgot how annoying she really was, but I couldn't stand her. Natalie Portman, fantastic actress. I really do love her, but in these films, I think she honestly could have been played by anyone. I really don't.
Generally, really, anybody could have played her character. Anybody.
Yeah, really. Like, this is, and here's the thing, this is Natalie Portman. I think one of the best actresses of this generation.
Yeah.
Everything she does, unless it's Fox Lux, is amazing.
Or the Star Wars.
Oh, get ready for Film Tour to attack you for that.
Or the Star Wars prequels.
Yeah, those two, of course. But, unless it's something like that, most of the time she is phenomenal. And I'm not saying she's bad in this movie, because she is not good necessarily. I just think that she just seems very lost, and it just doesn't service her very.
Oh shit, you got something up your throat, goddammit?
Yes, a lot of this movie, I just got the sense that she wasn't really into this role, that she wasn't really into what she was doing. The chemistry between her and Thor as well, I don't really think is there. There's really only one scene at a campfire when they're talking. Like, all right, now I kind of am seeing the chemistry between them. But throughout most of the, I think she's so bland. I think she's so one note. There really is nothing to her. And again, the only reason I'd say their relationship isn't as bad as the Liv Tyler and Edward Norton one is because of that one extra scene that does actually make me feel something. The only scene, it's the scene at the campfire. It's the only scene I think is actually well done. That scene where they're talking and she reveals to him things about her past and he talks about some of his insecurities. Like, that's a good scene. I think it's probably the best scene on Earth for sure. But everything else I just think is so bland. Stellan Skarsgård, I think, is also very much wasted here. He's just the scientist. That's all he is. He's the scientist that gives him information, and that's really all he does in this movie. And I get it, they're trying to go for a fish out of water storyline, but it's not.
Pretty much what this is. Pretty much, it's just a slightly better version of the Masters of the Universe live-action movie. That's exactly what this is.
I haven't seen that movie, but again,
it's bad. But this is like a slightly better version of it.
Yeah, Double Nine and I have talked about this. When the most memorable line in the Earth portion of the movie is Chris Hemsworth going into a pet store saying, "I need a horse." That's when you need a horse. How bland the rest of it is. Like, the Earth stuff, it's so boring. There's not a lot going on there. But again, I can't say this is on the level of The Incredible Hulk because the Asgard stuff is so good. It's just a very in that way. It's also a movie that has two climaxes. Like, honestly, there are two endings to this movie, and one of them's great. You know, the one with him and Loki. I think is really well done. And then the one on Earth is, again, it just feels really rushed and it just doesn't work. So
the giant ass robot for some reason.
Yeah, what you have here essentially is just two very different movies that just don't go well together at all. I get what they were trying to go for, but it just did not work for me. The Asgard stuff is so well done that the Earth stuff is honestly terrible in comparison and sometimes very hard to watch. I get what they were trying to do, but it just doesn't really work at all in a rewatch. C for me. I don't think it's a terrible movie or anything, but it's probably one of the most frustrating. So I give this one a C.
For me, who's going next? Me or
I guess
Taylor can go.
let's go to Gary because Gary I know feels a little bit differently. So,
all right. I think out of all of us, I like the movie the most.
Yeah,
but even then, that's not saying much though. But pretty much you kind of say some stuff. When they're on Asgard, it's really fantastic because you can definitely feel like Kenneth Branagh because he did a lot of movies like a lot of Shakespeare's movies and all that. So you can definitely feel his style in the Asgard stuff. So he's real. So the Asgard stuff is fantastic. Chris Hemsworth, this is like his breakthrough role because he was in the only role I knew him for was his small role in like the first Star Trek movie. And this was kind of the one that kind of put him on the map, and he's fantastic. Him and Tom Hiddleston and Anthony Hopkins are amazing in the movie. The visual effects, besides like the fucking frost giants that looked goddamn atrocious.
Yeah, that's what I was alluding to when I said the iffy special effects for the front.
They look terrible, and besides that, the effects on Asgard are beautiful. They're stunning to look at. The rest of the cast. On Asgard, like Idris Elba, even and Rene Russo and Jamie Alexander, and Ray Stevenson.
yes.
Yeah, they did good, even though they don't have that much to do.
I will say Jamie Alexander really does stick out though, and I kind of wish she had more to do in these movies because she shows a lot of potential for sure.
Well, she can't because she's dead.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just saying I wish she had sort of maybe a bigger role in like Ragnarok or something because she does really stick out here.
Yeah, honestly, kind of watching these movies, like, why couldn't Thor fall in love with her and not Natalie Portman? But we'll get to that later. Loki is great. Loki's like the best part about the movie. He is incredible. The final battle between him and Thor is very good, very well done. But when we get to Earth, though, that's where the movie, every time it turns back to the stuff on Earth, is just the typical fish out of water story that you've seen before, and it's just very whatever. It's very bland. I like Stellan Skarsgård though. I do like him. I like the scene where they were in the bar and they were drinking and their conversation in the bar. I really like that scene.
That's all right.
Yeah, I thought it was a good scene. There are some funny moments on Earth, mainly like
I need a horse.
Yeah, I need a horse. That was beautiful. And also the scene where Chris Hemsworth throw that freaking mug on the ground and smashes it. I thought that was really funny.
Another.
Yeah, but everything else, Kevin, like you mentioned, Kat Dennings, fucking awful. Like she's not as bad as in this one as she is in in the Dark World, but she still gets on my nerves a lot. She's not funny. Natalie Portman, look, I know there's a lot of people that don't like her as Jane Foster, and yeah, I can see that. Yeah, she could have been played by anyone. She could have been played by literally anyone. But I thought she did fine. But my biggest problem with her is that it wasn't really her performance. It's kind of how the character was written.
Yeah.
she's kind of just a typical love interest, and that's all she's written as. And it's
See,
like
that's kind of like why I don't think her performance is very good, because it seems like she's just kind of lost because she doesn't really have a lot to do, and I don't really feel like she brings much to the role.
yeah, I thought she did a good enough job for what she did.
Right.
It's just the character could have been better, and yeah, in watching movies, like, dude, this is Natalie fucking Portman. And like you said, she's one of the best actresses working today. In the same fucking year, she just won an Oscar for fucking Black Swan. You just made her just the bland love interest.
That's true, yeah.
Like Jesus Christ, you could have gave her more to do, and like you said, like the chemistry between her and Chris Hemsworth. While I wouldn't say it's necessarily terrible, you just don't feel it. You know, mainly because like her character is very bland, and all that, and you just don't see the chemistry in them. Besides, like the campfire scene, the campfire scene is like the best scene on Earth.
Easily, yeah.
Yeah, because I love like you can at least feel like, okay, they're actually having some chemistry, and I love the line where Thor is like, on your world, you have science. On another world, there's magic. On my world, they're both the same, and that's something like that. I really like that line, and I like that scene. But everything else, like the action scenes, some of them were cool, and some of them were just whatever. That's gonna be forgettable. But yeah, everything else about the movie is like it's very two. It's like two different movies. Like one movie is like fantastic. It's like, oh my god, this is one of the best in the MCU, and the other half is just very what the fuck, very mediocre to the point where it's like, why am I watching this? Like in the end, it just kind of equals a mixed bag. Like there's stuff in the movie that are really good, but there's a lot of stuff in it that, like the Earth stuff really brings it down to like a C plus. And also, I will say this though, I would have given it a C, but Foo Fighters, they played "Walk" by Foo Fighters, and that made my nipples hard, so it's now a C plus. So
Oh yeah, I also know the thing you love the most in the movie are the Dutch angles.
Oh, that's the worst thing about the movie. The fucking Dutch angles, Jesus Christ. Oh my god!
You guys had to have been there. Like when I watched this movie with this guy, there was nothing he complained about more. Maybe in the entire all of the movies we watched, there's nothing he complained about more than the Dutch angles in this movie.
I literally almost felt like I was watching fucking Battlefield Earth. Like Jesus Christ! Honestly, that's like the one thing I'll say that Thor 2 improved on. There's no fucking Dutch angles. Jesus Christ! Who thought that was a good idea? Jeez, but besides that, yeah, it's a very okay movie. It's
yeah. If you go to the box review, you'll say I said like I wish it had more Dutch angles. That's because this motherfucker like would not stop complaining about them.
And honestly, they should have had more Foo Fighters because Foo Fighters is a shit.
All right, so now we turn to now we can turn to Double Nine here.
Hell yeah. This movie, it's weird.
Yeah.
Whenever it's on Asgard, this movie is fucking fantastic. I pretty much love everything about it once it's on Asgard. Like, it is amazing. Once it comes down to Earth, it's not good. All the Earth stuff, for the most part, is really not that great. It's pretty boring. The characters are bland, except for Thor himself. I do like some of the hijinks that he gets into on Earth, but I'm not that invested into his relationship with Jane. I almost said Jade. Jane all that much. See, the movie's that forgettable that I almost said the wrong name. It's not that interesting. Natalie Portman, I don't know what she's doing. She just seems like she's just there for a paycheck, to be honest. That's all it really seems like she's there for. I don't hate Kat Dennings nearly as much as everyone else does, but she's still not very good. There are some funny things, like we mentioned, the horse thing, or when he slams down the mug. That's funny. But, anytime it's on Asgard, it's really great. I really love the world of Asgard and stuff like that. But also, I think what many people, I think because Marvel didn't really have the confidence with Thor at first to putting him on Asgard fully because, you know, it's such a out there thing and he's such a god, you know what I mean? So I think
that might have something to do with it. They still
because I don't think they had the full confidence of showing that to audiences just yet. But every time we went to that, it was so great. Like I loved pretty much every minute of it. And also, this was one of the only few times we're ever gonna see Thor with the helmet on. So that's another thing. But you know, it frustrates me so much that we have a really great movie on our hands, but they decided to focus more on this Earth stuff, which is not that great, to be honest. You know what I mean? See, at least I know not many people are going to agree with me on this. At least when we are on the Earth stuff in Thor: The Dark World, I'm a little bit more interested in it because it ties in to the plot a little bit more. I actually like where it takes itself, which I know not many people agree with me on, but you know what? I could give less of a shit. But anyways, what?
Wow, savage 99.
Hey.
But anyways, I don't really this movie is such a mixed bag. It's easily the most mixed bag movie of any of these movies, in my opinion, honestly.
Probably, yeah. Honestly.
But overall, there's a good movie. There's a really great movie in here, and then there's a really bland movie as well in here too. It feels like you said, two completely different movies. Yeah. And also, before I forget to mention, Tom Hiddleston is great as Loki. It definitely shows that he's definitely gonna have many promise in the because he is, you know, as we knew, he was going to be the villain for the Avengers, so he does show promise to what he's going to eventually bring to that film. So
yeah,
overall, I would give it a C plus. It's fine. Definitely one of my least favorite. It's one of the I only don't like two MCU films, and they're both in this phase. Iron Man 2 and Thor, and I don't really enjoy this movie all that much. But so yeah, kind of just forgettable, honestly.
Oh yeah,
at least you like it more than Iron Man 2.
That's a good thing, at least.
But also two things. One is it shows that Loki is going to be a great villain in that post-credits scene.
Oh yeah. Scene that you insisted I skip.
No, you skipped anyway, and we should have watched all of the post-credit scenes, you idiot.
We should have, yeah.
Yeah, because of you moron. It's all your fault. And also, 99. Let's not forget, Walk, my boy.
Yes, absolutely.
What am I walk again? And I keep on.
All right, enough Foo Fighters. For
shut up.
No. Episode.
Shit.
Yeah, definitely. But anyway, that's Thor. Now, here's the thing. I know we've been very negative on the last, like, 2 or 3 movies. Pretty much all of us well, maybe not 99, not as much, but, you know, a lot of us have been very negative. Here's the thing I will say with this phase. It ends off on a really great note. These last 2 movies are both really great. And first Avengers one that I was actually the most interested in rewatching, because as a kid, when I watched it, I really loved the first half. I thought it was so well done. And then I just didn't like the movie after that. And I'll get into that right now. I really don't know what I was thinking, because I think this is easily one of the most underrated in the entire series. Like, people talk about, you know, Winter Soldier and Civil War, but I think First Avenger doesn't get talked about enough. I think this is a very well done origin story. And there's a lot to love here. Right off the bat, Chris Evans, I mean, out of all the castings in the MCU, I think this was the one people were the most divisive about. They were like, what?
Yeah, because, like, there was a lot of rumors of who was going to be Captain America at first. Like, John Krasinski, Jason Ackles was even mentioned to be Captain America, but Chris Evans.
Interesting.
What'd you say?
Jensen Ackles, interesting.
Yeah. He was even, like, mentioned that he could be Captain America. And, but Chris Evans was cast as Captain America.
Yes, Chris Hemsworth was Captain America. It was
too many fucking Chris's in this universe, goddammit. But
there are a lot. There's also too many Jasons. When I thought you almost said Jason Momoa when you said
hey, let the boy talk.
But Chris Evans was cast, and a lot of people were were like really iffy about it, because the last time he played the superhero, it was kind of not the.
I mean, he was like the best part of it.
I mean, it's the best part of them, but you get what I'm trying to say, though. Like,
I literally don't remember those movies at all.
but to continue, but and then look what happened. So continue what you were saying.
Yeah, it's like the Heath Ledger thing with the Dark Knight, where people are like iffy about him,
and now nobody else could see anybody else playing Captain America besides Chris Evans.
Oh yeah, I think literally the first time he walks on screen, he's got that scrawny, like he's got that scrawny body and things like that. Immediately you're like, yeah, this is Captain America, no question about it. And the arc that he goes through, I think is so great. Yes, it is familiar with him being that sort of zero to hero sort of, he starts off and no one really takes him seriously. They're like, why does this guy want to join the army? He's all scrawny and things like that. He can't seem to keep up with the other, characters, but you really do care about him. You see his passion that he has. Nobody cares more about this than him. And he wants to be up to the task. And when he eventually, does go through that transformation where he does become, typical Chris Evans, he's got the, he's much more well-built and things like that. And he's all buffed up. I mean, that's when this film really gets amazing, I think, because up then, then you get to the whole thing where even though he wants to be a hero, people see him more as this sort of like political sort of figure, someone who is just there to get people to join the army and to be this beacon of hope. And that's not really what he wants to be. He wants to fight. He actually wants to be a superhero, but people aren't taking him that seriously. And I think that's a really good arc. It's not really something we see a lot of superheroes endure, this idea that, they can't really be superheroes because instead they're just being, these political cartoons, essentially. Like, that's all he really is. He's just being this guy that is just used for advertising and things like that. And he's not really getting to do what he really wants to. And I think that's a really good arc overall. I like where they end up going with that. Also, Peggy Carter is such a great character. I love Agent Carter a lot. I think it's probably one of the most underrated MCU shows, and seeing her here really reminded me of that. I think she's such a great character. I love the romance that her and Steve have, and I think really she is that is the heart of this entire film for sure. Either that or Bucky. But I think she really does do an incredible job here. I love the scenes that those two have together. The stuff between him and Bucky is also really well done. My dumbass didn't realize that Bucky was even in this film. But on a rewatch, it's great to see him here. I love
the whole arc in these. And when we get into these other movies, it revolves around what happens in this movie.
Winter Soldier was a new character in the other Captain America movies. So,
well,
okay. For SoundCloud listeners, I am this close to strangling Kevin Falk. So yeah.
For audio listeners, he literally is putting up his hands.
Yeah, like this, because I want to strangle him right now. Because
he's gonna pull a Homer Simpson on Kevin.
Oh, you will.
Yes, I will be your Bart. I will be your. But anyway, like I was trying to say, Sebastian Stan is really great here. The only thing that brings down this movie for me, because there's a lot I really do love here. I think the action sequences are fantastic. It really does feel like a war film. Also, let me just say the motion capture in this film on Chris Evans, it is amazing. I mean, it is unlike anything that you've seen, especially when you see Chris Evans. Like, nothing about it looks like a special effect. Nothing about it looks like they've altered his body. You legitimately believe that he is that skinny. You legitimately believe he's like a twig. You legitimately believe he looks like me because I'm a skinny motherfucker. Yeah, I think they do a really good job with that overall. The only thing that brings down this movie is I just think all stuff can get a little over the top. It can get a little goofy, and sometimes it's hard to take it seriously, especially when it comes to Tony Jones, the accent he's doing. It's a little silly, but other than that, I think Red Skull is a very underrated villain. I really do like Hugo. I mean, it's Hugo Weaving, so obviously he's great. But
I mean, he's shown in the past that he can play a great villain. So
yeah. I think he really is very underrated. I don't think enough people talk about him, and I really do love him in this film a lot. I think the climax of this film is so thrilling. It's so well done, and the way this movie ends. There's a lot of devastating films in the MCU. This has to be one of the most devastating endings yet. I mean, when he wakes up and he realizes that it's present day and he realizes, he's never going to be able to have that date with Peggy or anything. He's so confused about what's going on. Considering the arc that he's had, not only do you feel terrible for him, but you just can't wait to see what happens next. And I think they do an incredible job with that. This is just a great origin story. It's what most origin stories should do. It gets you into the character. It has so many amazing performances, and I think definitely is one of the strongest origin stories in the entire MCU for sure.
I actually would like to go. I actually would like to go next because I actually have a bit of I don't want to say if this is somewhat of a hot take, but I like this.
Before you go, B+, by the way. B+ is what I give.
I slightly like this more than Iron Man, to be honest. This is my favorite. This is my favorite solo movie in the entirety of Phase 1. This is an excellent origin story. Like, just seeing the man that Captain America becomes throughout this entire movie is absolutely fantastic. I love pretty much it's a near perfect movie in my opinion, honestly. It is absolutely fantastic. Like, I often go back and forth in terms of the movie MCU. I kind of go back and forth for who's my favorite hero. Is it Captain America or Iron Man?
Especially on a rewatch.
Would say?
Especially on a rewatch, I very much agree with that.
Because just the way that the way that they tell his origin, this is absolutely fantastic. I love, because, and like you said, unlike most of these heroes, he wants to be a superhero, and people are holding him back from being a superhero. I think that's an interesting complexity that happens throughout the film, and we don't see that in a lot of superhero movies, to be honest. Like, I think it's really fantastic. I love seeing that. The chemistry that he has with Peggy Carter is great. Like, I think that is the absolute heart of this entire movie. It's just their chemistry with each other. Like, I love seeing them together, and it just makes the ending just that much more heartbreaking once you see it. Like, and I would 100% agree with you. That I do think the ending to this movie is definitely like one of the most devastating endings in the entirety of the MCU because of what Captain America has to do to save everyone.
Just the last line alone where he goes, "I had a date." I mean, how can you not at least tear up at that?
Like, it's so great. Like, it's so fantastic. I love it so much. And like, and then, when we, get to the end, and when, when you see him in modern times, it's like, it's so interesting. And, we get more of that once we get into like Avengers and Winter Soldier and stuff like that. But I like that this was back. It didn't just want to set it in modern times. No, we have to show the origin of Captain America in that time of the war, and it was really fantastic. And like I said, it's probably my favorite solo movie in the entirety of not the entirety, but the entirety of Phase 1. Though it is so great, and it's easily, in my opinion, it's like this and another movie that we'll get into later on as the most underrated in the entirety of the MCU.
I know a movie you're talking about for sure, and I'd probably say that one, but this is definitely very close.
Yeah, but this is definitely like very close. This movie is so great, and now I don't know if I like this or Winter Soldier more. I need to rewatch Winter Soldier in order to do that. But like, this movie is so great, and it really doesn't get enough love as it really should. So yeah, I would definitely give this an A. Honestly, it's an almost near perfect movie in my opinion.
Wow. Okay, I was not expecting that, but
I know a lot of people I know some people are like, oh, it's good. I love this movie so much.
Yeah.
Like, I really do.
I really do love it too. I was surprised, but Gary, go ahead.
Well, like pretty much Double Nine said what I was gonna say. This and one movie in Phase 3 is for me like tied for like most underrated MCU movie.
Yep.
Like, it's like in terms of what movie like people just say, oh, it's good. It's like, I wouldn't say it's anything amazing. Like, I would say that first Avengers is actually a fantastic movie. It's one of the best origin movies I've seen out of any superhero movie, in fact. And hold on.
Oh no.
Sorry, guys.
Okay, he's back.
Sorry. Somebody just walks in. But
that's great.
Yeah, for all those SoundCloud people out there, somebody walked in, so I had to mute my mic. I thought Chris Evans as Captain America, once again, like Robert Downey Jr., you just can't see anybody else playing that role now. It's just to think,
Yeah.
fucking John
It's so
Krasinski,
iconic.
John Krasinski, who I love. I love John Krasinski. I guess he's proven that he can probably play Captain America now, with stuff like A Quiet Place. But back then, I just knew him as like fucking Jim from The Office. It's gonna be hard to see him as that see him as Captain America when I just know him from The Office. For Chris
Especially
Evans,
now when The Office was still going on, it would have been quite awkward, I feel.
Yeah.
yeah. With Chris Evans, it's like, yeah, sure, he had the Fantastic Four movies, and I get why people were skeptical about him being Captain America, but Chris Evans proved those fuckers wrong. He was phenomenal. It could be argument that Captain America is probably the best MCU character in terms like written wise. He's probably the best character out of all the MCU characters, and he's probably one of my favorite characters in a movie, probably this decade. To be honest with you,
He's like a top tier like movie hero like of this decade. To be honest,
yeah.
Like when you think superhero, I think Captain America is like one of the first names.
Captain America, honestly, like of this decade, is like the first superhero that comes to mind with that.
Yeah,
honestly,
no, definitely.
And you think when you think about it, like Captain America, he can be like a goofy ass superhero. He's just a guy dressed up in like a fucking blue and red striped costume and all that. You like, oh, how am I gonna take this guy seriously? And okay, this movie, it is very
unpopular opinion. Captain America's costumes are the best costumes in the entirety of the MCU. I don't care what anyone says. I love his costumes. I love all of his costumes in the entirety of this series.
Even the Avengers one.
I love that suit. I love that suit so much.
Okay, hey, that's cool. He was saying like I like you guys said, the visual effects when he's like all scrawny and all that, man, like that looked incredible. Like honestly, I was shocked. I'm shocked that didn't get nominated for best visual effects at the Oscars.
Yeah, honestly, like when Gary told me that wasn't nominated, I was like baffled. Like I don't know how that hasn't been recognized more. Like that to me is master visual effects, and I really wish people would recognize it more.
Because here's the thing: they think that Transformers 3 had better visual effects in this movie. So
yeah, tough.
I mean, yeah. But,
buildings falling over and shit. Great stuff.
Giant robots.
Yeah, just constant destruction over, implanting a scrawny body on an actor that is so buffed up. Yeah, no, let's not recognize that. Let's recognize just fucking like destruction.
Yeah, but to be fair, the effects in Dark and the Moon were really good.
They are, but I don't think they hold a candle to the effects in this movie.
Yeah, and sure, yeah.
At least for me.
Yeah, sure. The movie is very corny, but it fits that time period that it's in. Like, it definitely feels like it fits the time period. Like, is it like the 40s?
Yeah,
it fit the 40s. I love the relationship between him and Agent Carter. I thought Haley Atwell did a great job in the role. I love Tommy Lee Jones in the movie. He was really good. Hugo Weaving, like you guys said, he's one of the most underrated villains in the MCU. It sucks that he's not playing Red Skull anymore because the guy who they got to play Red Skull is actually Ross Marquardt. He was on The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
He was he replaced him in Infinity War, but I thought Hugo Weaving did a good job in the role.
Yeah, Tommy Lee Jones is also really good. I forgot to say that.
Yeah, he's very good in this movie.
Yeah. I love this production design. I thought that was fantastic, and I thought maybe that should have gotten nominated for best production design at the Oscars.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh yeah, the production design is absolutely incredible here.
Yeah. If I have any problems with the movie, it does drag in the middle like a tiny bit, just a tiny bit. And I agree with you. The ending in the movie. Once he sacrificed himself, and once he ends up in modern times, and he's like I had a date. That got me. That really got me. Like,
How can it not? Yeah.
Yeah.
and I think, yeah, this might come in later, but I think that might have like something to do in Endgame, but we'll get to that sometime. But I think how I thought Joe Johnston did a great job directing it.
Absolutely.
Like this is like Marvel's first period piece in a certain way, and it kind of shows how like it does have like typical like zero to hero kind of story, but
Yeah.
when a hero is as likable as Chris Evans is in this role, like you just can't help but like follow his character along. And also, Bucky, your Sebastian Stan is great.
Yeah.
And we all know how that turns out in the Winter Soldier. So, while the Captain America trilogy, it's kind of one of those trilogy where each film gets better and better.
I think it's probably the strongest trilogy of the entire MCU.
It's easily the best trilogy. It's better.
Well, movie-wise, for me, yeah, it's the strongest trilogy.
Yeah.
And overall, though, it is one of the. It's tied with this and the other movie we're going to talk about later as like the most underrated MCU.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give I would give First Avenger an A-.
All right, yeah.
I love how we each had a higher, like,
yeah, pretty much.
Plus, Gary had an A-, I had an A.
Yeah, we should have gone to Gary first, so it would have been like,
Yeah.
steadily getting higher. But
yeah,
very, very underrated for sure. And as Gary alluded to, sure, there are things that are definitely cliche, but the whole arc of like, him wanting to be a hero and them sort of like precluding him from doing so, we don't really see that a lot. And I think that's really the thing that stands out in this movie.
And the arc gets better when it comes to all the other films that he's in the MCU.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think, again, he definitely has, I think, the biggest arc out of any of the MCU characters. But with that out of the way, now we get to the big guns here. We get to the big guns.
To the finale of Phase 1.
Yes. We get to the film that for years people are like, there's no way that could happen. There's no way you could pull it off. It'd be really cool, but there's no way you could possibly pull it off. And they did, and it could not have turned out any better. Honestly, looking back, I can't think of a single flaw I have with this film. I really can't. I think this is perfection in basically every definition, I think. It is the definition of just a perfect superhero movie. I mean, just the scene alone when, Black Widow is sort of like interrogating those few Russian guys and things like that. And she gets a call from Nick Fury and Hawkeye shows up. Right from there, I mean, it's so spot on. The chemistry between these guys, it's so spot on there. I love the way all of that is done. I think something that this film does very well is that because we've already gotten, Iron Man and Captain America's stories, it's not that they're pushed to the side. They still do have a lot to do in the film, but we don't need this like tons of development for them because we've already gotten stuff with them. This really is, out of all the characters, the Hulk really, this is very much his movie in that way. He has a lot to do here. It very much feels like a new sort of origin story for him, but it doesn't come across as an origin story. It's just kind of like retelling Bruce Banner's story in a much better way than I think they did in Incredible Hulk. Mark Ruffalo is so much more dynamic. He's so much more fun here. I think he does such an incredible job in this film. All of the characters are so great here. Jeremy Renner is Hawkeye, Scarlett Johansson is Black Widow. Even smaller roles like Stellan Skarsgård in the beginning of the movie, I think is infinitely better than he was in Thor. Really, everyone is just at the top of their game here in terms of acting. I think everyone is just phenomenal. Tom Hiddleston as Loki, especially, though, really does impress me. Right? He's amazing in Thor. But what he does in this movie is on another level. The whole idea of like the Tesseract making him a lot more evil and vengeful and just heartless. I mean, there's stuff he does in this movie, and you watch like Thor Ragnarok, and you're like, how can I possibly get behind this guy? But somehow you have. Somehow you've been able to. And you see what he does in this movie, and it's just, it's horrible what he's doing. I mean, especially that one scene at the museum and things like that. very hard to watch, but I think he does such an incredible job. I love this idea that he thinks he's like this undefeatable villain, and that scene that Tony Stark has with him, which for SoundCloud listeners, that is the scene you heard in the beginning of this episode. The reason I picked that scene in particular is that I really do think it sums up the entire sort of Tesseract sort of saga, where Loki thinks he is this really powerful sort of villain, and that he, basically undefeatable, and that nobody can really take him down, but the Avengers who are ready to bring him to justice, and how he doesn't really know what he's up against. And that's something that I really did love seeing a lot. And I think that is really well done for sure. But the thing that, again, really does work for this movie, and the thing a lot of people have talked about is that, you remember the Battle of New York, obviously. The Battle of New York is so impressive, and there's so much to love just about that one sequence in general. But it's the character interactions that we really do remember. Just seeing everyone come together, the witty dialogue. There's so many funny lines in this movie. Just Iron Man and Captain America sort of going back and forth on already sort of setting up the conflict they eventually have in further movies, which I think they do such a great job with here. But the lines, like I said, there are so many hilarious lines in this movie. There are so many memorable lines in this movie. And the movie isn't afraid to go to some really dark places as well. I mean, I forgot that Tony Stark essentially sacrifices himself, almost kills himself in this movie because of how much he cares about beating Loki. And it really does show how much that character has evolved from this film to Iron Man. In just the course of like 6 films, he really has evolved greatly since then. And I think they do a really great job with that. But also the death of Agent Coulson. I mean, that always gets me. It's very hard to watch for sure. Sure, they brought him back on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and things like that, but in terms of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this is his last appearance, well, for now, until Captain Marvel, but that's still a prequel. And I think they handle it very well here. He wasn't a huge character in the other films, but you still really did like him. So to see him kind of die here is really sad to see, and I think they handle that very well. There's just so much to love about this movie. I mean, from the character interactions to the iconic scene of just all of them, in New York, and they're ready to battle. I mean, that's such an iconic shot at this point. Like, everyone, when you think of Marvel, that's one of the first shots I think you think of. And this movie very well does show that. And here's the thing. Any problems I could have with this movie, which, Hawkeye being underdeveloped, they've all been fixed in other installments. So I really can't think of one issue I have with this movie. This is pretty much a perfect movie for me. And, I've gone about it on long enough. It's an A+ easily. There really is no other way to say it. And I really do think it is as perfect as it could possibly get. As rocky as a lot of this phase is, this film really does make up for it.
It was worth it. Like,
it was very much worth the wait. Like, and I've said it before, like, I appreciate the fact that they tried to give almost all of these guys an origin story. So that way it's not like a Justice League where we have to do the backstory of Thor and we have to do the backstory of Captain America. No, we already saw that. So we don't need to do that here. And I think that's really great that they did that. Again, maybe they weren't as well told as they could have been. But I appreciate the fact that they, that again, they did take the time in developing these characters as much as they possibly could. So when that team up movie comes, we're just ready to see these guys team up. We don't feel like we need to know anything more. And I think they handle that so well. So and again, I really do think this makes up for how rocky some of the phase 1 movies were. It's an A+, it's a perfect movie. And I'll just leave it with this. Puny God. That's all I'll say. Puny God.
Yes.
Amazing stuff overall. But anyway, let's turn to Gary here.
Even though this is not the theme song for the fucking movie, Forever Fight as One. There you go.
It does definitely apply, though.
Hey, but at least we got Soundgarden, Live to Rise,
That is a really great song that I forgot. Like, I don't think it's enough attention.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. Alan Silvestri's score is iconic as fuck, and it's amazing.
And that's the thing, that with all these MCU scores, a lot of them aren't the most memorable. Like, but when you hear Alan Silvestri's scores, like, you know the fucking theme.
Oh yeah, it's so recognizable.
Yeah, but look, yeah, this is like the ultimate summer blockbuster movie. All
Yeah.
right, like you can complain about some of the flaws with the movie in terms of like, okay, the story isn't the best story. It's very simple. It's like
I'm so sick of that fucking complaint. Like,
yeah,
a
yeah.
simple story does not automatically mean it's a
Yeah,
bad story.
I
I
would
like that it's a simple story.
Exactly. That's what I like about it too. Like, it's nothing too
Especially
complex.
since it's.
yeah.
What the fuck is that? What is that noise?
I don't know what the fuck.
Oh, I guess I had something open.
God damn it, Kevin.
I was
That's
gonna
great.
say
But anyway,
yeah.
what I was gonna say is, especially since it's a first movie, I wouldn't expect for it to be complex. I would wait for them to do like that's like saying you want them to start with Thanos. Like, no, we're trying to get to Thanos, and that's something that this movie does very well. Is that you want to start off small.
Yeah, sure. The movie does have a simple story, but in the end, that's not really a problem.
No, that's not a complaint.
Yeah, because for the type of movie it is like this, it doesn't really need to have the best story.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, like what makes this movie work is seeing all these characters coming together, kicking some fucking ass.
Oh yeah.
And that is easy. Like it's people just say, oh, the action scenes are like fantastic, they're awesome. Like yeah, they're phenomenal, but let's not forget it's the character interactions that what makes this movie amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like seeing both Iron Man and Tony and Captain America going head to head, like not agreeing with each other. Seeing Bruce Banner like trying to conflict with him turning into the Hulk or not. Thor trying to get used to the Earth stuff and facing off Loki. Black Widow. She was much better here than she was in Iron Man 2.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure. I know people say that one of the complaints is that Hawkeye is very underused, but honestly, even if he was for most of the movie is like a mind controlled zombie. Like even if that, like he still has his time to shine. So it wasn't really a flaw.
I think really everyone does stand out in their own way.
Yeah, he has his time to shine, so it's not really a flaw to me that they didn't give him that much. Samuel Jackson, I love. Like he's perfect as Nick Fury. Kobe Smulders, who I didn't realize at the time was on fucking How I Met Your Mother. Yeah, she's great. But fucking Clark Gregg as Coulson. Like when you watch him in these movies, like, oh, he's just a random character that appears in the background. Well, why should we care about him? And when he dies, you're like, okay, it sucks. But then once we get to the scene where Nick Fury kind of talks about it and put like cards on the table where it's just bloody, you're like, oh. You just started like, oh shit, that and his death kind of means more to not just to the Avengers, but also to the audience. You realize that, oh, that death not only left the impact on them, but also on a lot of the audience members. And for that, and Loki is one of the best superhero movies, even though now he's kind of more of an anti-hero now. But even then, like, he's fantastic. You can tell that Tom Hiddleston is just having the time of his life playing that role. Like, being so suitably over the top, but just so...
Absolutely.
But he's just relishing it, and he doesn't... Like, he's phenomenal in the movie. And the visual effects, of course, the visual effects on the Hulk, way better than in the fucking 2000 Incredible Hulk. It's way better.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, especially since like Mark Ruffalo actually did the motion capture for the Hulk. Yes, he did, and that's why he looks as real as possible. The entire battle in New York. I know a lot of people going back to Transformers 3 earlier. I know a lot of people compared that the New York battle to that battle in the.
Yeah, fuck off with that. No.
I mean.
Yeah, oh my god, just because destruction happens. Yeah, an alien invasion's fucking happening. What do you think is going to happen?
And they're like, hey, but
there's going to be chaos.
Yeah, and also the ships look similar to the ships in that movie. Even then, like, the New York battle's still, like, at least in the New York battle, you can tell what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the visual effects, of course, are fantastic. It is one of the movies... And yeah, sure, you can say that some of the cinematography looks more. It looks more. It has like one. If I have like one nitpick, just one, that the cinematography does look. It's not bad. It's still good, but at times it does look like a TV show a little bit.
Mm.
But even then, that's not really. It doesn't really like bother me. For yeah, in that case, but yeah, just every time I rewatch the movie, I just love it more and more and more. It's easily, but it's like when, like you said, like throughout this entire phase, we've been going like great to mediocre for me, like for the rest of people, like very mediocre to great again, and not to fucking phenomenal. And like this was like the biggest movie. Like this, it was also like a cinematic achievement that Marvel actually pull off because, like you said, people are like, you can't. There's no way they're gonna make this goddamn movie. There's
Yeah,
no.
because like even though like movies like this are so commonplace now, you have to consider that this was a time when franchises just weren't successful. Like there were so many franchises that would start up and then they just fall through the cracks. And to see this one actually prevail and actually be able to tell this story, and not only that, know that this isn't the end. Like there's still a lot more to tell. I think that alone is commendable, and what it's done superhero movie since then. I mean, everyone's trying to imitate this movie. Every superhero film, even to this day, is still trying to be like the Avengers. And again, it really did pave the way, and I think change the way we look at superhero movies today.
Hell, even the fucking Justice League tried to be like the Avengers, and they didn't.
Exactly, and it failed miserably.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, and the movie has a lot of funny moments too, like the Galaga guy, like and of course the classic. I got that reference, that classic line, and of course the one that a lot of people recognize. And Kevin, you just quoted it earlier, the scene where Hulk literally beat the shit out of Loki by smashing him everywhere. That is easily the funniest scene in the entire movie. Or him punching Thor right after they're already kicking at that.
Yeah.
Like Hulk is pretty much.
Yeah, I love it how they're just teaming up, taking out everyone, and just Hulk is like, just punches him.
I am a god. Just like he just like picks him up and like throws him around and goes, "Puny god." It's always been one of my favorite lines in like I think the entire MCU.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But overall, Avengers is one of the best superhero movies ever made. It's easily the best movie in this phase. I don't think it's no surprise I'm gonna give the movie an A+.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. If you have not seen it somehow, I don't know if you were living under a rock.
Well, then you shouldn't watch this video because we just spoiled everything.
Yeah, but it's fantastic. It's and it just, after seeing the movie, you just can't wait for what Marvel had in store in the next few years. So, woo!
All right. Well,
go ahead. Try to say something differently than what we've already said.
Can't really, because everything I love about this movie is what you guys said. This is one of the greatest superhero movies ever made. It is just, it's so great. Like, honestly, everything about this movie is really fantastic. From the character interactions, like, I still think this is the best, like, superhero team-up movie we've ever seen, honestly. Like,
the only competition it has is like the Infinity War, really, I think.
Yeah, like this is just, it's perfection, honestly. Like, I love how Captain America interacts with Iron Man. I love how Iron Man interacts with the Hulk. I love how Black Widow interacts with Hawkeye. Like, I love how the interactions with all these characters are great. Like, I love how each character interacts with each other. Like, all of them have different personalities, and just seeing them all collide is really great.
Yeah.
And everyone brings it their all into this. Tom Hiddleston is still one of the most menacing villains we've had in the entirety of the MCU. And he does a fantastic job as Loki. The action sequences are absolutely incredible. I love the fight scene between Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America that we see. I love that one. I love the when they're trying to fix the ship, or of course the Battle of New York. that is fantastic. Like it's just such an amazing movie, and it's just one of those films that I rewatched. And I still love every minute of it. I saw this in theaters back when it came out in 2012.
Oh yeah, same. I'll never forget.
And it's still a top tier favorite like theater experience of mine. It was an absolute event to witness. And it still remains not only one of my favorite superhero films, but just one of my favorite movies in general. I love this film to death. It is the finest of Kino superhero films you will get.
Yes.
For sure, I'm giving this an A+. Like, there's no question about it.
Yeah, and just very quickly, something that none of us have brought up. You know, a lot of people like to talk about the Russo brothers and James Gunn and things like that. And sure, they're both really great at what they do. But I do think Joss Whedon, a lot of people underlook just how much he did bring to this franchise. I mean, throughout most of this phase, you could tell it was very up and down. Joss Whedon, I think, really kickstarted this franchise and made people see, okay, now they're getting somewhere. Now we see what's happening. And, you know, this is something great. And I think he really did a great job at just bringing what this franchise needed. And I think he just, I know obviously because of Age of Ultron, you know, a lot of people don't really like to talk about him. But when you watch this movie, I mean, you realize how much of an asset he really was to this entire series. And I just don't think he gets talked about enough. His directing is fantastic. And I really could not have thought of anyone better to direct the movie overall. But with that, guys, we're done. We are done.
Wait, Kevin, also, let's not forget.
Go ahead.
We cannot forget shawarma.
Yes. Probably the best, one of the best post-credit scenes ever. It's just them eating shawarma. Also in this movie, we get a cameo of Hellboy, right? We get to see Hellboy.
Oh, shut the fuck up.
All right, I'll explain.
Yeah, Thanos is definitely Hellboy.
When I was really young and I first saw this movie, this was like, if you guys have seen my earlier videos, you know how fucking dumb I was.
I mean, you still are.
Yeah.
Yes, but I know the difference between Hellboy and Thanos. But regardless, back then, when I saw Thanos for the first time, I turned to my dad and I said, "It's Hellboy." And like he gave me this look, and I was like, why did he give me this look? And then I eventually came to realize that it was Thanos, but I left the movie thinking Hellboy was a part of the MCU, and it's taken me a long time to realize that he's not even a Marvel comic character. So
honestly, I don't blame your dad for saying it.
Yeah, I know it's really dumb, but for some reason, I thought Thanos looked like Hellboy. And
damn, your voice keeps on going out throughout this entire video.
Well, I've been talking for like 2 hours, so what do you expect?
Kevin, here's the thing. And this goes out for all you SoundCloud listeners out there. The difference between Thanos and Hellboy is that Hellboy, one is red, the other is purple, and one has a testicle chin, and the other has horns on his head.
Well, for some reason, I thought Hellboy was a Marvel villain, but either way, guys, we're not done here just yet, but we are done talking about all the movies overall. Now we're going to do is something that's, I think, is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to rank the phase overall, and then we're going to give like our brief thoughts on the phase, what it does right, what it doesn't do so right, and then give an overall grade to the phase. So I'm going to go last, actually. So we're going to go to Double Nine first. So again, rank the movies in the phase, talk about what works in the phase, and then your overall grade for this phase overall.
All right, bitches. Here's my ranking of the Phase 1 movies.
Yes.
Bitches. All right, so here we go. In last place, I have is Iron Man 2.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have Thor. Then I have The Incredible Hulk. Then I have Iron Man.
Nice.
Then I have Captain America: The First Avenger. And then I have The Avengers. Overall, this phase.
Hot takes, though.
Would say?
These hot takes, though.
But overall, I do think this phase is very good for the most part. Despite it having my two least favorite films of the entirety of the MCU, it's still a very good phase. I still enjoy it a lot. It definitely did seem Marvel was although they were doing things good, I definitely do think there were some things they could have improved upon, and they definitely do in the next two phases. But this was just a nice starting point. I really like it a lot. So I would give this phase a B+.
All right, Gary.
All right. In last place,
I keep losing my voice.
Okay. All right. In last place is probably the Incredible Hulk. In fifth place is Thor. Fourth place is probably Iron Man 2. And then probably it's going back and forth between Iron Man and Captain and First Avenger, but in terms of which one I would rewatch more, I would say it would be third place would probably be First Avenger, and then second place would be Iron Man, and then first place is, of course, the Avengers. And overall, this phase is overall good. Besides like the Incredible Hulk and Thor, and to a certain extent, Iron Man 2 at some points. You can definitely tell that this the Marvel Cinematic Universe is first. They're trying to find their footing in some of these movies, but for the most part, I think they did do a good job with this phase. It's thankfully the Avengers and Captain America: The First Avengers did help this phase out. So overall, I would probably give this phase a B. Yeah.
All right, so let me just go right now. I'll say it right now. I think this phase is very up and down for me at least. When you start off with Iron Man, you're like, yeah, I love this. I can't wait to see where this goes. Then when you get to Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, it figures out a bit. You start to wonder. Like, you can definitely tell that they were still. Why do I hear the Endgame trailer?
I'm not playing it.
I'm not playing it either.
I guess I opened it up.
You dumbass.
See, Kevin, you may not be as dumb as you used to be, but you're still a dumbass.
I didn't know that was gonna happen. I clicked on an article and I just started playing anyway.
Oh my god, 99. What we got to do with this boy?
Like I was trying to say, I think it kind of peters out after Thor and things like that, but it really does pick up in those last two films. And especially with Avengers, I mean, that's really when you see the potential that this franchise really has, the places that it can go. It recontextualized the way people thought about superhero movies. It got people to take them way more seriously. You know, we saw this was a series that wasn't fucking around. They were definitely going to further these characters. And I think that's really the best thing about this phase. At its worst, I do think this phase, like I said, you can tell they were definitely still trying to find their footing and things like that. And there were quite a few things that I think they definitely could have doubled down. They definitely could have lessened a bit. But for the most part, this is still a very enjoyable phase. There's a lot to love out of it. The casting, for the most part, is so great here. I think really everyone just really does give it their all, aside from like some of the other casting choices, which I said are just very bizarre overall. But for the most part, I absolutely love. I love a lot of this phase. I can't say I love it all the way through though, because like I said, I do think those three films, they do deter it from being a truly great phase. But the ending and the beginning is so strong that I can't go any lower than I'd say a B+, because I do really love that they flesh out all these characters. I love that they took their time, and I think it really did pay off in the end. So for me overall, I would give it a B+. And if I had to rank the films, it would definitely go Incredible Hulk is in last place for sure. It just does not feel like an MCU movie, and it definitely deserves to be in last place. Then we got Thor, which, like I said, is probably the most up and down in this entire phase. Then you have Iron Man 2. Then we, of course, have Captain America, the First Avenger. Then at number 2 is Iron Man. And, of course, number 1 is the Avengers. And with that, we come to a close here. That's basically everything we're going to talk about here. We have covered all of the Phase 1 movies. Now, if you want us to talk about Phase 2 or Phase 3, that's going to be in March. And, well, I know it's March, but it's going to be later this month. and our final installment will be in April. Jesus Christ, that's going to be a long episode because there's a lot to talk about there.
Yep.
Either way, before we do close things out, I do want to just go to my guests one last time, my co-host here. First of all, I want to turn to the person that nobody had. What was I going to say?
Dumbass.
I forgot what I was going to say. I lost my train of thought. But just double nine, say something. Say anything.
Dumbass. 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 Dumbass, dumbass, dumbass. All right, now.
Oh yeah. For audio listeners, I fucking double nine just put his fucking hands over his head like he was doing like a rap beat or something. But go ahead.
But anyways, thank you, Mr. Flake, dumbass, for having me on here. For
is that your new single? Are you dropping something tonight?
Hell yeah. But anyways,
are you gonna pull a Jonas Brothers and just drop something tonight?
No, for sure. But anyways, thank you for having me on here for phase 1. Talking about phase 1, and I can't wait to do phase 2 and phase 3. That's gonna be exciting. So yeah, I very much appreciate it, and I am FilmFan0599, and we'll see you all later. Peace.
All right. MC Deadpool or Gary Rucker, whatever the fuck your name is.
Gary Rucker, you fucking idiot.
Even though your profile picture is still Deadpool.
Yeah, well, shut the fuck up, you dumbass.
Oh, well, you know what? Next episode.
Shut the fuck up. Anyways, thank you for having me on here talking about the MCU movies. It's an honor to talk about all these movies, and I'm glad to be here with my boy, FilmFan0599. That's right. And also with all the time he was in here, Mr. Adam Haskell. Thank you for. I'm glad to be in with you, my man. And I'm supposed to thank you, but I guess I have to. So thank you, Kevin. As much
Boy, we wouldn't be doing any of this. Actually, no, you were the one who actually came up with this idea.
Yeah. But thank you for. Thanks, man. But
of course.
Yeah, but it's fun to talk about all these movies. And I can't wait to talk about Phase 2 and Phase 3. I can't wait to spend the rest of those days watching all of those movies.
Yes, that's gonna be a lot of fun.
And also I can't wait to talk about Thor: The Dark World. Am I right?
Yeah. So we'll get to that in the next episode. Once we get there. But either way, guys, that is it for the first episode of the MCU conversation. This was a lot of fun for sure. I've wanted to do a podcast for a very long time now, and I'm very happy that I can start one. Hope you guys really did enjoy this. If you're watching the audio, if you're listening to the audio version of this, love to hear your feedback as well. Definitely want to start using SoundCloud more, which is kind of why I'm putting it on there. I feel like I haven't really done anything on there, and I've had this account, and I want to start using it more, so that's why it's going to be on there. If you're watching it on YouTube, thank you guys for watching, of course. Very much do appreciate it. Oh, Adam Haskell is here. Okay, here to assign us off, I guess. What do you want to say real quick?
The Incredible Hulk sucks, and yeah, that's it.
Wow, that's great. But yes, thank you, Adam. For contributing as much as you possibly could. We hope that you will be in the next episodes a little bit more prominent. We'll have to see. But that's it for this first episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Check out all these guys' channels except for MC Deadpool because he doesn't do anything.
He's got a letterbox of dumb shit.
Well, subscribe to me on Stardust or Twitter or whatever.
Well, you know what? Fuck Double Nine. Then he doesn't do anything of note. But
I do.
Well, he loves to steal my ideas. He did a Kids Choice Awards video, and that's usually my specialty.
But anyways, guys, thank you all for watching, and have a good night.
Yes, thank you for trying to take my job. But that's it for this portion of the episode. That's it for this first episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you guys in the next installment, and we will see you guys for that. And Excel
Okay, bye.
Excelsior.